To live by values, you must know your value. This is what we'll be talking about in today's video. Thank you so much for joining me and welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Rolly. Let's get right to it.
So, carrying on from the last video that I did on the topic of values and living by values, there are some thoughts I've had, and I just want to share that with you. Um, One of the thoughts that came to my mind was to live by values, you must first know your value. And I had reflections on two things, on my own life and also on the life of David. We talked about David last time, and I think carrying on to look at David's life will be quite interesting. But just talking about my own experience, you know, I've come from a place where I did clearly admit in the last video that I have been guilty of not living by value, of not living by my values, of living by what others may think, of living by, yeah, living a people pleasing life, just like I said before. But how did I come? And to be honest, people pleasing is a trait and it's not all negative. So I don't see it as all negative. It's quite a good trait to want to see people enjoy your presence and what you do for them. And every good trait can have a downside. The downside is you might get caught in a trap of doing everything to accommodate people, no matter how it affects you. That's where the problem comes. And like I was saying, I've come from a place of living like that to being more of a person where I'm making my decisions based on what is my values, what are my values, you know. I'm going to say what I'm going to say, do what I do because it fits in with my value, not because it's going to make that person feel a certain way or not. Now, when I reflect on that journey, and I'm still on the journey of being more and more of that, because I can't say I'm 100% making every decision and doing everything based on my values, but I'm getting there, and life is a journey. But what I realized is I am valued, realizing my value as a person, realizing that I am highly loved and I'm deeply loved by God, realizing who God calls me to be, who God has made me, realizing that my value is intrinsic, that when God made me, He already placed a value on me, and that value is good. That I am not performing to be valued, that I am not, what was the word? Jumping through hoops. That there are no hoops that God has set before me that I have to jump through to prove my value to Him or to anybody else. In life, there are many experiences where people try to devalue you. There are many experiences that will try to devalue you. When you fail, that could try to devalue you. When you make mistakes, when even, you might be in relationships where people say or do things to try and devalue you. It could be your childhood experiences. It could be your upbringing that makes you feel that way, like, oh, I'm of less value because, I had this humble background. We were not so well to do, or I didn't do well in school compared to my colleagues, and I'm not doing well in life. People my age are here and there and see where I am. All these circumstances, situations can try to devalue you. And you might begin to live life from that devalued point of view. And for me, there were things like that. Not those are not the specific things that affected me. Those are just examples. But there were things around in my life that were present that made me believe I was less than and I wasn't good enough. And I have to do better and I have to get better. But actually, when I look back, God brought me through a process. It wasn't rapid, it was slow and gentle and kind, and He just gently instilled value in me. I wouldn't even say instill, because the value has always been there. The value was in, I was born with value. When God made me, He made me with value. But He renewed my mind. I guess He awakened me to the truth of who I am. He awakened me to the truth of who I was and who I am and who He's calling me to be. And based on that, I was able to grow and embrace the idea or embrace the concept of living by value. Because he did that work. I think that's a work of healing, to be honest, emotional healing, I would say, and psychological healing, because it's healing your mindset. And then he started to introduce the idea of values to me. And I believe that is how God works. He knows the plans that He has for you, and He knows the circumstances you are in now. So there's nothing to hide from God. There's nothing to... You can be open, you can be vulnerable as to where you are, and then let Him bring you gently. He is so gentle, He's so kind, He's so patient to bring you to where you need to be. And like I said, looking at the life of David, we can also see that, David was a shepherd boy, and he didn't come from a family where he was highly valued. His dad didn't even seem to acknowledge his existence, because when Samuel came and asked for the sons, David's father, it was the last person on his mind. David was out in the fields taking care of the sheep. So even though David did not come from a home where he was the highly valued son, and he did not come from a household that was highly valued in Israel, God had already placed a value on him. And David's time with God had already awakened David to the idea of his value before God. When we look at David's life, when we read the Psalms that he wrote, we see that David was a boy and grew to be a man that knew how much God loves him. And he knew how much God valued him. And he knew how much God valued Israel. We can see when David was speaking about, Goliath's affront, when Goliath was confronting Israel and taunting Israel with words. The response of David was different from everyone else. The reason why his response was different was because he understood how much God valued him and how much God valued Israel and the covenant he has with Israel. We can see that in David's life. So whatever circumstance has tried to devalue you or has even succeeded in devaluing you, whatever reason you feel less valuable, whatever is the situation or reason or circumstance that has brought this on, the way out and the way forward is in knowing who God has made you, is knowing that you have intrinsic value. Before you were born, God told Jeremiah, before I formed you and put you in your mother's womb, I knew you and I called you. And if you are listening to me today, know that God knew you and God formed you and He placed you in the right place at the right time for a purpose and for a reason. Life and situations and circumstances may be telling you otherwise or may have fully convinced you that, you are not valuable, you are not worth anything, or that you've gone too far. I hope my story and the story of David can encourage you to seek God and get honest before Him and let Him show you the way out. So God loves you dearly and you are precious in His sight. Take care. Have a wonderful day ahead. And, like if you enjoyed this, share it with someone, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments any questions, any comments, any thoughts at all that you have on this issue.